Happy Monday, everybody. I know some of you, it's not a happy Monday. It's raining. Your team lost. I get it.
Well, even for your fan base, like that was pretty putrid and embarrassing, but a lot of people wanted your coach to get fired. So for some, there's a happy ending
Some
to the
didn't
weekend.
think it would happen.
Some didn't think it was. I certainly didn't think it was going to happen that quickly.
Yeah.
Even after how bad the game was on Saturday, I didn't think that I'd wake up to that news on Sunday.
What was his quote 2 games ago? Like, he's the right guy for the job. He's definitely the guy. Like
2 weeks ago. Your head coach did that with the special teams coach,
Unbelievable.
and then a week later fired him, and then the AD did that with the head coach 2 weeks later.
We'll get to that at 8 a.m. with Orem. Maybe a peekaboo at 7:45. We'll see how this hour goes because...
Hey, what else happened this weekend? Anything big? We got smoked like a cig this weekend, dude. Dude, what happened there? What are we doing?
You know, if we go back to our last week's show, we talked about the juice, no juice. We talked about matchups, right? We comped rosters in ways, and I'm not mad at the way we covered it. If you would have told me last week, though, that Oregon not only loses but gets dominated like that in the second half, especially.
Yeah, where they have 50 yards of offense or something like that in the second half.
I think it was 63 total.
63
but
total.
My calculations are correct. They got 22 yards in absolute last-minute garbage time.
Yeah.
I actually 41 yards going into their final drive.
I turned it. I didn't realize they dropped a Hail Mary at the end of the game too. I guess I did not watch at that point.
Yes.
Click.
I think it was Sadiq that dropped. I remember going like, "How did you drop?"
People
that?
were upset.
But,
I just thought it was a Vegas thing. People are upset because it would have hit the over. The over would have hit had they caught that Hail Mary, and the under ended up hitting.
But just Indiana coming into Eugene and looking every bit of the Google me bitch stuff that Signetti has talked about.
Yeah.
Unbelievable performance by Indiana this weekend at Autzen Stadium, and leaving a lot of questions, I think, for some Duck fans out there of, whoa, like, we lost, and we lost that way?
Yeah.
That was impressive what the Hoosiers did at Autzen Stadium.
Without a doubt it was. I think the initial reaction can be difficult for a lot of people, and it goes back to the conversation we were having last week of just like, I had a buddy text me on Saturday night. He was like, how is it possible that Indiana is better at football than us? Like, how is that possible? And when you
told him to Google it
when you phrase it that way,
because the coach was one of the reasons.
Like, I do think that's led to some of the I think it led to the lack of juice for the game for a lot of people last week, and I think it has led to a reaction to that game that is just bewilderment of like, what, huh? But I think you have to take the labels off of it and view them just as a football team. And the biggest takeaway for me from the game was that's one of the best teams in the country. Like, Indiana is legit. Their front seven is nasty.
Oh, man.
They have elite wide receivers on the outside. Surratt absolutely ate Oregon up.
Yes,
Mendoza outplayed Dante Moore in every way outside of one bad throw that he made, kind of late, falling backwards.
Yes.
That was really the only mistake that he made. He was better with his legs. He was better with decision-making. He was better with processing what defenses were doing. Like, the line of scrimmage was not a massive advantage for Oregon. Like, we thought it was going to be going in. Like, they outplayed Oregon in literally every category, not to mention just special teams. How about the 6-point swing at the end of the first half where you miss a chip shot? There's 20 seconds left, and they end up kicking a 60-yarder.
Yeah.
And instead of having the lead at halftime, you're give
down.
them the lead at halftime, and then they get the ball coming out of the half. Like, so many little things piled up for them, and we can dive into the details of the matchup and all that. But I think the biggest takeaway for me was that team looks like they have all the pieces that they need. I don't know what their depth is behind some of their key guys if guys do get banged up, but you could say that for a lot of football teams. They're going to be a 28-point favorite essentially in every game remaining on their schedule. The only other challenging one that we circled for Indiana at the start of the year was they had to go on the road to Penn State, which
they have a new quarterback and a new coach.
Nobody really scared about that one anymore. So I think they're going to win. Like, I just would be shocked if they're not 12-0 at the end of the season and in the Big Ten title game. And we'll get the Oregon stuff. I think there's a glass half full approach and a glass half empty approach. The one thing that I am fairly certain of is I think you have cost yourself an opportunity to defend your conference title. Like, because
Ohio State and Indiana
Ohio State
might
does
run away
not
with
seem
it.
to lose, although we'll wait and see. They got to beat Michigan at the end of the year, and I don't know how tiebreakers would work if Oregon was to win out the rest of the way. But Indiana now having that win again, you need them to lose twice in order to jump over them, and they ain't losing twice with what's left on their schedule.
Yeah, I think there is a lot to get to. We have audio. Kurt Signetti, I thought, had a funny quote. So he did multiple interviews. We had the post-game audio, but one that he did with the CBS crew that was live on the panel.
Yeah, on the field after the game.
He talked about the program building, and he's not really doing the Google me thing because he's like, I just felt like I had to do that to get attention to us, which
smart,
brilliant,
worked.
I love that he signed off with everybody's going to tell you cookies over brownies. or was it brownies over cookies? I couldn't remember which one he had it. I texted in the group chat. It's like,
did.
That's a great point because, yeah, people are still going to crap on Indiana, even though they just beat Oregon at Oregon because they're Indiana.
Yeah.
But I think out here, that's not certainly a thing anymore. The stat that had me most blown away, and there's a lot people could point to, whatever your favorite stat is, that's fine. The stat that had me like most, oh my God, 6-1. Indiana had 6 sacks. Oregon had 1.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Like, it's one thing to say Indiana could create that pressure. We talked about the simulated pressures and the way that they kind of scheme up their own pressure because they don't have traditional 5-star edge rushers. Although, man, we learned a lot about their linebacker and their DTs.
Dude, yeah.
They had great games.
Trade you linebackers.
It was, well, I mean, it was amazing. It was just more like their ability to make that happen because you knew Oregon would prepare for it.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about offensive line play. Indiana had their false start problems, sure.
They did, yeah.
Oregon had blocking issues, like the ones we talked about going into the Penn State game, that reared its ugly head. And I think the thing that surprised me the most was the lack of times I heard this name.
Mataya Uiagalelei.
He registered.
Mendoza got rid of the ball quickly, man.
1 tackle.
Yeah.
It was Bear. It was Amari. Like, for the most part, the edge guys were taken out of this thing. So my stat that surprised me the most in this game was 6-1, Indiana sacks to Oregon sacks. That one, I think, dictated a lot of what we saw
without a doubt.
for both teams.
Well, we gave you the stat last week. Mendoza's release time on the year was like 2.6 seconds. He gets rid of the ball quickly, and that was the thing that you were going to hopefully throw a wrench in because then you could win up front and your edge rushers could get there. I went back and watched the game again on Saturday night because I'm a sicko, and that's what I do on Saturday nights, win or lose, because I'm just curious, like, what did I miss? What did it look like? There were a lot of times that they were there, like they were right there. They were in the backfield within 3 seconds. He just was catching it, read, throw. Catching it, read, throw. And the ball was out of his hands rapidly. And so when you're getting rid of it that quickly, there's nothing that you can really do as an edge rusher. The few times that he did hold on to it, they were ultimately able to get to him. Amari Washington had the one early in the game where he just drove the right guard into him, basically, and had the sack early. But outside of that, he was getting rid of the ball so quickly. And I'll go the other way. Like, Oregon's offensive line is going to be talked about today, and they didn't play great by any stretch of the imagination. Their tackles have been leaky and pass pro all season long. They had some penalties. Poncho had a really bad hold on a scramble that negated a first down from Dante Moore. Like, the offensive line, I'm not going to sit here and claim played great. A lot of criticism is going to the offensive line and the offensive coordinator, and I get that. I'm not saying either of them without blame. 90% of that for me is on Dante Moore.
Oh,
90%
Dante Moore,
of it.
yeah,
Like,
for sure.
He was awful on Saturday. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. And if you go back and watch, so they had 6 sacks on the game as a team.
Yeah.
2 or 3 of them were him just not throwing the ball away.
Yeah.
He just scrambled. He would just take losses. Like, you could throw it out of bounds. Just take 5-6 yard losses and take a sack or run out of bounds. So that counts as a sack. He had times where he had more time to throw the football than he was aware of because they confused him with the simulated pressures, and he was getting rid of the ball too quickly. And then he had other times where they just were confusing him so much that he didn't know what to look at, and that leads to second-guessing in the pocket. You're pumping it, you're holding it, and then you get bad plays and negative plays that happen. And so by no stretch did the offensive line play great. By no stretch did I love all of the play calling from Will Stein. The biggest thing that I circle out of that game is the way that they were able to confuse Dante Moore and essentially to steal a Sam Darnold line from years ago. He was seeing ghosts. He was feeling pressure at times when there wasn't any pressure and getting rid of the ball too quickly because he felt like he was constantly under siege and he did not have a clear picture of what was happening on defense.
I mean, I'm not going to act like I'm clairvoyant in any way, but like I thought the game itself just kind of started with okay, here we go. This could be a fun one.
Dude,
was the first play of the game. He got sacked for like 6 yards and you went, oh my God, that was easy for them. I think more than fair. The offensive line has their questions. That looked like UCLA Dante.
He just looked like he was rattled, and he didn't know what was happening.
He didn't know what he was doing. He was holding the ball too long. He was kind of everything, right? Like, videos are going around social media of him missing Sadiq or Decorian and him kind of rushing and throwing a little whip pass that was incomplete. Like, I think all of it is fair. I want to say that I saw the stat, and I'll see if I can back this up, that, like, quarterback grade-wise, it was the worst quarterback grade performance by PFF since Anthony Brown in 2021.
Yeah, it was ugly. It was that bad.
So now it kind of leaves some questions, right, of like, one, Indiana deserves all the flowers in the world. They came into Eugene and they handled their business. They took it to Oregon. But I think it raises the questions of, are you going to face other coaches now that maybe there's a blueprint of what Oregon's offensive line and Dante Moore, how you can attack some of that weakness. They scored 13 points.
Yeah.
Because 7 of those are the defense. So
yeah, and one of the field goals, the only points they scored in the second half, the field goal was essentially outside of the pick six, obviously.
Right.
Was they pinned them deep,
Yes.
got the 3 and out, they punted it, and they got the ball at like the 40-yard line. They only picked up like 10 yards on the drive and then made a field goal. That was one of their scores.
Well, and I'll be fair to you too, because on Friday, I know you certainly didn't see what happening, but like you did say, you kind of leaned the under. You thought it could be kind of maybe one of those
I
games.
had absolute belief in Indiana's front seven.
But
dude.
13
that front seven,
points?
That was shocking. That was jaw-dropping.
Jarring.
I was not surprised that Oregon's offense struggled at times. I was surprised that they struggled the entire game. And I think it's a good reminder for them and hopefully a teaching point because we can get to where they're going to go from here. But when you dig through how the game goes that way, it's a 20-20 game in the fourth quarter, right? So that's it. It's up in the air. Anybody can win it at that point. And leading to that point, Oregon had done so many stupid things. Like opening drive, for example, they take that sack that you talk about. You get out of that. You get a first down on a screen. You're like, okay, now we're kind of going here. Second down, they throw a pass to Noah Whittington. He catches it, and if he just turns around and falls forward,
I know he went side.
He picks up a first down. He goes side to side. What happens? It's third and short stuff. Fourth and short stuff. Hand Indiana 3 points because they got a short field. You had on their only touchdown drive of the game, and this gets into the coaching problem of it. The only touchdown that they scored offensively, what did they do? They went tempo. And it caught Indiana off guard. And you hit a deep shot to Malik Benson. You're like, hey, there you go. There's the offense. How many times did they go tempo the rest of the game?
I don't remember them doing tempo after that.
0.
Yeah.
So, okay, it worked.
That?
Why did it not? No other times did you think to like, hey, we caught them off guard. They weren't able to adjust on the fly. You can't quite set up your simulated pressures the way that you wanted to when you're going with a blur offense. Why was that not a part of the game plan? So that falls on them. You had one of the drives where they kicked a field goal in the first half that Johnson, the tight end, just dropped it. He just dropped a wide open pass in the flat. Would have been inside the 10-yard line. Instead, it led to a third and long, incomplete pass. Then you got to go kick a field goal. Like, they had so many moments. How about Dan Lanning in multiple times after being aggressive and going for it in his own? He went for a fourth down on his own 35-yard line.
He did.
And then he had multiple, well, not multiple, but he had one where he ran the ball on 3rd and 8 that led to a missed field goal. So you just essentially accepted the 3 points there. And then in the second half, in a game that is 13-10, they had a 4th and 2 at the 20-something yard line, and he kicked a field goal. So it's like, that's not your identity. You have been aggressive. You went for like 7 of these things at Penn State 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he wouldn't kick a field goal
and
at
now
Penn
it's
State. He wanted to go for it every time.
4th and 2, and I think at that point they trusted their defense because Oregon's defense had dominated to start the second half and got back-to-back 3-and-outs, but it blew up in his face because you kicked the field goal to tie the game, and then Indiana goes 9 plays, 75 yards. And so it was a good reminder for them of like, there's little things throughout the course of not picking up that first down, not making that catch, not capitalizing on something. Like, the main criticism I'll have of play calling that I think falls on the lap of Stein outside of not going hurry up, one of the things that I thought that they were going to do effectively was essentially say, you can do all this fancy window dressing of who's coming, who's not coming, who's blitzing, who's not blitzing. We're just going to turn around and run it down your throat. And I went back, and when I watched the game on Saturday night, I'm like, I felt like they had a lot of success just running it up the middle. And by my count, now this is at like, midnight on Saturday night, so It's a little gray. I counted 18 runs up the middle, like essentially in between the guards, somewhere in that territory with varying backs. And it was like 15 of the 18 runs, they picked up more than 5 yards.
Yeah, it's where the size difference,
and
right?
That's
what we talked about going into the thing.
Why was that not? And it felt like they fell into the trap of trying to get Dante involved in the game and try to get his confidence up instead of just saying, dude, this is working. I saw an interview randomly with Jim Harbaugh last week where he was asked, what's the most number of times in a row you've called the same play? Like, how often did you do that? And he gave a story one time he did at Stanford, and they were playing USC, and he ran the same play 13 consecutive times. Because it just, like...
Because why would you stop?
It worked. It picked up 8 yards, and it picked up 6 yards, and it picked up 7
Oregon
yards.
State against Oregon a few years back. Remember
just
that?
Keep running it until they show you. Like, Davidson up the middle was good for, like, go back and look.
He averaged 7.4 yards a carry.
Look at all of their backs. Davidson averaged 7.4. Whittington averaged 5.4. And Jay Lamar averaged 5.7. Yeah. So they had, but then when they would try and run off tackle, when they tried, D'Air Hill coming in was an obvious thing. Like, here it comes, an off-edge rush, like, or off tackle run.
Speed out,
and they couldn't outflank him, and they had more hats on the outside. So there's a lot of little things that you can nitpick and criticize. That being said, it was 20-20 in the fourth quarter, and I would say Oregon played their D game, and they still were in it with a chance to win.
I would love to go back, and we can think about this. Maybe the text police can help us. The last time we recall Oregon scoring one offensive touchdown in a game at home. buddy, we might have to go through the archives and dust that off because I can't. Maybe there's one that's just right there.
They had the Utah win when Bo was hurt 2-3 years ago. In Lanning's first year, remember he played.
Yeah.
They won that game like 17-14.
That was a night game, right?
It was
And
a night game,
yeah.
low scoring and ugly. And I can't remember if they had a special teams or defensive touchdown.
Okay,
in that
maybe
game,
maybe a caveat of one touchdown and a home loss.
Yeah.
I just was like watching this and I'm like, I can't believe it's 2020. First of all,
yes,
but you still felt like this is Indiana's game.
Oh, they
They're
controlled
dominating.
the game, the entirety of it.
And I just to see that, I never would have saw that of this happening. Indiana winning, okay, yeah, that fashion and that way, the offense looking the way it did. How do you feel, Duck fan?